views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren. Jaime. Today, we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we talk about City Harvest, and we learn about the initiatives they're doing to provide food to the community. Also, we'll sit with the care team supervisor from AdvantageCare Physicians on their experience as a nurse during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then a little later on in the show, we'll discuss with the Riverdale Press how they won statewide awards at the New York Press Association's Better Newspaper Contest. We'll talk with the editor from the Riverdale Press. And then we'll speak with a VNSNY public health nurse on how they're still providing care in the community. And then finally, we'll learn how the Jehovah Witnesses are continuing their ministry amidst COVID-19. Stay tuned. All this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I'm Daren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, March 19th, and you're watching Open, a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. And if you want to find out more about us, we encourage you to stay connected to us on our social media platforms at BronxNet Television, and then also you can check us out on the web at bronxnet.org. Well, a lot has been going on, but we'll kick our show off with some Bronx updates. Well, we start off with the United States Department of Agriculture. The USDA announced the agency will be allowing states to provide pandemic electronic benefit transfers, better known as EBTs, to low-income families through the summer. Our BronxNet reporter, Alexis Penn, brings us the story.
The United States Department of Agriculture recently announced that they will be allowing states to provide pandemic electronic benefit transfer, or EBT, to low-income families through the summer months. This is estimated to reach more than 30 million children across the country. Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America, says that this will help feed many students in the Bronx.
At bare minimum, hundreds of thousands of students in the Bronx are going to be able to get this assistance. So it is a huge friggin' deal.
Joel explained EBT will provide at least $350 worth of food per child in each household, regardless of immigration status, and will be delivered on a card similar to the cards received for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, so that families can shop in most grocery stores and bodegas.
It's important to know that in the Bronx, in New York, and really throughout the country, there was a huge hunger crisis before the pandemic ever happened. In New York City, there are already 1 million people before the pandemic who lived in homes that couldn't afford enough food. Hundreds of thousands of people in the Bronx alone, one of the hungriest urban counties in the United States, couldn't afford enough food before the pandemic.
Programs such as PEBT have been put in place since the pandemic to help ensure that every child who received free school lunch under the National School Lunch Act is provided food benefits while their school is currently closed or reduced attendance during the 2020 to 2021 academic year. However, as the nation begins to overcome the pandemic, Joel worries programs such as PEBT will be cut back.
I do fear that as the elites are no longer troubled by the economic downturn as wealthy people get wealthier because they're able to work remotely in a way that low-income people aren't. They're going to forget about this crisis. They're going to not put pressure on policymakers to continue this focus. So that's all of our job as citizens and residents of this country, to continue to keep the focus on the fact that we still have a massive hunger crisis, and we're going to need government interventions for a very long time.
Still, Joel remains hopeful in the message that the news of the expansion of the PEBT program over this summer.
Public policy matters, election matters. People say all sides are the same, nothing ever matters, nothing ever changes. This news proves that's wrong. 2 million kids statewide, including many kids in the most vulnerable families, including those of undocumented immigrants, are going to get hundreds of dollars of extra food purchasing power this summer, and that's because government is finally working.
If you would like to learn more about the PEBT food benefits, visit the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance website at www.otda.ny.gov. If you would like to learn more about Hunger Free America, visit their website at www.hungerfreeamerica.org or call their number at 212-825-0028. Reporting for BronxNet, Alexis Penn.
And thank you, Alexis. In other news, we want to let you know DoorDash is teaming up with BronxWorks, serving the community PPE near the concourse section of the Bronx. Our BronxNet reporter, Kim and Eileen, was there, and our cameras bring the story.
Traveling through the Bronx, you may find a DoorDash tent set up with Dashers who say they're committed to giving back.
Handing out PPE and more to community members and local Dashers, DoorDash is supporting communities near the Grand Concourse in the Bronx.
Today we out here handing out PPE kits, which consist of face masks, hand sanitizer, and we're also giving our kits to Dashers, which have bike mounts, reflection patches, so they can be safe on the road. People come and they welcome us, and they're grateful for it.
The food delivery service partners with nonprofit and local organizations like BronxWorks Carolyn McLaughlin Community Center to connect with the communities they serve. BronxWorks aims to help residents and families improve their economic and social well-being, and the organization appreciates the extra help from a company like DoorDash.
I know early on in the pandemic, it was hard to come by. A lot of the masks, the hand sanitizer, the wipes. So having some of the companies come out and do that for us was really key, so it's great.
Assisting BronxWorks with their community outreach, State Senator Louis Sepulveda encourages more corporations like DoorDash to support local communities.
These companies make a lot of money off of our communities, and it's great to see this corporate benefiting those people that have brought profits to them. And also, just as a human being, you want to do what's right, and you know that these communities need a lot of this stuff, need the assistance, and this is what it's about.
DoorDash has expanded this effort throughout the entire city, and Dashers say if you see their red van and tent, local residents and other Dashers are more than welcome to stop by. Reporting for BronxNet, Kim and Aline.
And thank you, Kevin. Great work going on out there. Listen, stay with us. Open continues right after this. And welcome back to the show. Well, City Harvest is the first and largest food rescue organization helping to feed millions of New Yorkers who struggle to put meals on their table since 1982. This year, City Harvest will rescue 153 million pounds of fresh, nutritious food and deliver it free of charge to more than 400 food pantries, soup kitchens, and community partners, and its own mobile markets across the 5 boroughs of New York City. Joining us now to share a little bit more and share in the details is the Director of Policy and Government Relations at City Harvest. We welcome back Jerome Nathaniel. And Jerome, good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us here.
Glad to have you. And as we talk a little bit about where we are, I mean, obviously we're a whole lot better in this pandemic, but yet and still City Harvest is at the forefront of dealing with this crisis head on. Talk to us about how you guys have responded to the ongoing need.
Yeah, so just to preface, as you started off, you said we've been here since 1982 doing this work. And unfortunately, the way that I'm going to share how we're responding now is going to sound very similar. And that's because even before the pandemic, even when there was record low unemployment, 4% unemployment, there were still over 2.5 million New Yorkers that didn't have enough income to afford food, housing, transportation, and childcare in our city. And we were expecting to do 66 million pounds of food during those so-called economic prosperity times. So you fast forward to the pandemic, as you said, we're anticipating doing about 153 million pounds through the end of our fiscal year, which ends in July. So even as we're recovering from the public health aspect of the pandemic, we know that the recession or the food insecurity and the need is going to last well beyond this time. During the recession, it took nearly 10 years from the 2008 recession for food insecurity rates to get back to normal. So we definitely got our work cut out for us.
And talk about having your work cut out for you. I mean, obviously, a lot of hungry people, a lot more on the unemployment line, a lot with dealing with housing insecurity, and of course, food insecurity. What's it been like, given the fact that this number is rising, and you're talking about getting to 153 million? What's it been like for your staff?
It's a lot of work. We're always prepared to respond to, albeit if it's a natural disaster or a human-made disaster or a public health crises. It's a lot of work. At the height of the pandemic, when unemployment was as high as 20%, we opened over three dozen new emergency relief sites. So we had to really pivot to where that need was, and really be responsive to the fact that, as I said, this isn't necessarily new need, but it's exposed need. So we know that some neighborhoods were hit even harder than others. We know that the overwhelming majority of those that filed unemployment are lost income or low wage workers, were Black, Latinx, Asian, immigrant communities. So we need to be very responsive to figure out where the need is and make sure that we're meeting people where they're at.
Right. And out of this, I mean, there will be a lot of questions and also a lot more needs. Talk to me about some of the policies that City Harvest is looking to advocate for and really be a voice in this pandemic.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. So as we're doing everything we can on the front lines in terms of our operations to, as I say, feed the line, we also need to shorten the line. The way we shorten it is through our advocacy work. So on the city level, we've been providing a lot of materials for people that go to our pantries and soup kitchens to learn about ranked choice voting, which is the new approach to voting during this upcoming election. And we also, if you visit our website at cityharvest.org, we have information on some of the mayoral candidates and their stance on different food policy issues. So I really urge people to pay close attention to that as we prepare to fight hunger and to be better off than we were before the pandemic. And as far as on the national level, I really encourage folks to pay very close attention to what we're calling the American Families Plan and Child Nutrition Reauthorization. And both of those huge bills are opportunities for us to really get at child hunger and to really use what we learned during the course of this pandemic to fight hunger in the long term.
Are you satisfied that maybe on the side of elected officials, and we'll talk about them first, that they really get the understanding of how bad the food insecurity and how bad hunger is across the city? Do you get that feeling?
I would say one of the things that we've learned over the course of the pandemic that was a good thing is that a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar allies that knew that there was significant need in their neighborhood continued to work with us, and they stepped up their work across the city in neighborhoods like East New York, Brownsville, and the South Bronx. So we really appreciated that. A lot of electeds were attuned to some of the needs in their neighborhood, and then there were others who realized that there was this significant need in their neighborhood that predated COVID that also began to reach out. So we're getting a lot of calls from electeds, but our job now is to really make sure that we translate that understanding of the need and getting food in the pantries to really being committed to passing policies that end hunger and shorten the line, as opposed to continuously having this long line at our pantries and soup kitchens.
Yeah, nobody can do it by themselves. How's the public able to actually partner to assist you in in your efforts?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways. Right now, we have our annual Share Lunch, Fight Hunger campaign. And this is something that's very important to us. And we've been doing it for a long time, especially as the summer months come along and children are having their access to school meals disrupted, especially during the pandemic. Child hunger is increasing significantly higher than what it is for the general population by over 50%. So through our Share Lunch, Fight Hunger campaign, we raise crucial dollars to help feed families experiencing food insecurity. And this year, if you go to our website, there's different ways you could donate. You can even do it from your phone. If you text lunch to 20222, New Yorkers could donate $15 to the campaign, and that's enough to feed 41 children for a day.
That's amazing. What's it been like in terms of public participation and public support pre-COVID?
Public participation and support in City Harvest work has, we continue to be impressed by the level of generosity and support from anything from food donors who are stepping up their donations and working hard even during a time when the restaurant industry got hit hard. They thought of City Harvest first. We really appreciate. Folks are always looking for ways to volunteer at our mobile markets. So as you go to our website and go to the Take Action section and look for volunteer opportunities, there's also plenty of opportunities there. And then, honestly, my bias as the advocacy guy is that we've seen a lot of people step up their advocacy. We could say it's being at home and finding ways to advocate from home that people are getting a little more attuned to government and systems. But I'm very happy to say that more people are calling their elected officials, telling them the importance it is to fight hunger, and how a lot of these relief packages we're seeing are things that shouldn't disappear in a year because it took 10 years to recover from the recession. So we shouldn't pull the rug from under people as they're still trying to recover from this.
But I know that one of the things that are making a difference for you guys also is the mobile market. For our viewers who may not be so familiar, share with us how the mobile market works.
Yeah, so the mobile market is near and dear to us. It's one of the, so typically we have 400 different pantries and soup kitchens that are doing that direct service, and we're providing the 153 million pounds of food for them to serve the community. The mobile markets is an opportunity for us to do that direct service and to bring our tractor trailers, bring our trucks directly to NYCHA facilities or public housing, like St. Mary's, Mariners Harbor, Stapleton, about 2 in each borough, and to be able to provide a variety of produce to families on bi-weekly basis at each of those sites. So it's really a great opportunity to either volunteer and get directly involved, and also for us to make sure that we're getting that food directly to families and be able to see those changes for families that are able to participate and access that fresh produce.
Well, Jerome, as always, great having you here on the show, and thank you for sharing and the work that's going on at City Harvest. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having us.
All righty. Well, I want to let you know now, if you want more information, we urge you, please don't hesitate to visit the website. How do you do that? You go to cityharvest.org, and then also you can follow them on Twitter at City Harvest. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We do have more open coming up. We'll return coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. Well, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, nurses have been on the front lines serving those in need across the city and the nation. From the very beginning, through administering vaccines to millions of New Yorkers, nurses are not often recognized for their tireless hard work, personal care for people, plus their medical expertise. Our next guest has worked to ensure her patients receive COVID-19 vaccines, as she has seen firsthand how our community has either been underserved or hesitant towards the vaccinations. Here to tell us more is the care team supervisor at AdvantageCare Physicians, Patria Villalona. And Patria, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Daren, for having me, for taking the time. I'm happy to be part of this.
Well, glad to have this conversation with you. And first of all, thank you for the work that you do. It's National Nurses Month, and we want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And I'll start off with a question. How are things going, particularly in the area of vaccinations? We know that, particularly in communities of color, there's a lot of hesitancy that still lingers out there. Is that what you're experiencing?
Yes, at the beginning, there was a lot of people were, backing away, and we tried to reassure them and tell them the facts. If you don't get vaccinated, it's going to take longer. A lot of people want to wait. They want to wait if there's a reaction. So, but you know what? It took a little bit of time, but a lot of people are responding and saying, you know what? I'm tired. I want to get this over with. I want to go, to a concert. I want to travel. It's getting very difficult. So a lot of people are complying. There's still, a lot of education that needs to be done. When the Johnson and Johnson vaccine, with the issues, a lot of people were like, okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna stop there and let's take a pause. But it's okay. People, it's part of life. But they're coming in and getting back their vaccinations.
Yeah, I think you stole my thunder a little bit on that, because I was going to ask you about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I know that when the pause occurred, that put a pause in the hearts and minds of a lot of people. How much of awareness and how much extra conversation did you have to have following the Johnson & Johnson pause?
Well, you know what? Here at AdvantageCare Physicians, we're not offering the Johnson & Johnson, so that was a plus. We offer the Moderna, so that was my first thing. We don't have the Johnson & Johnson. We're giving the Moderna, which is very safe. But you give them the numbers. In 7 million people that had the Johnson & Johnson, 6 people had a reaction. So it's pretty good if and that's why it took 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and now it's fine to get it. So you have to kind of like give them the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, we're on the better side of this pandemic now when we're talking about vaccinations. But for you also had to deal firsthand with the infections and the quarantines and that. Walk us through that time frame for you. What was it like for you as a nurse having to deal with that situation where you found people infected and then also those that are actually transitioned?
Yeah, it was hard when this started. We started testing people for the flu, and they were coming back negative for the flu. So, back in March of last year, we had no idea. We came in close contact with people, but we didn't know. Luckily, I never got sick with COVID. I was vaccinated in January, thank God. But it was hard. We started getting a lot of phone calls, people not knowing what to do. If I have this symptom, could it be this? And we had to listen a lot and reassure the patients, it's going to be okay, do this, stay home. If you feel that you can't breathe, go to a hospital. So we did a lot of that, a lot of talking and a lot of being there for the patient. And the stories of patients that would come in and said, I lost my mom, and 4 days later I lost my dad, and a month later I lost my uncle. So we dealt a lot with that. We had patients that, I had a patient that lost her husband next door, sitting next to her at a couch. They were watching TV, So that was very challenging. That was very challenging for us to have to deal with that. But we were there for the patients. And, thank God that now things are much better, much better.
What was that feeling like to know that the vaccinations and the vaccines were going to be coming your way after hearing about it and, the possibility of it actually coming? Then to actually see them actually arrive. For you as a nurse, what was that like on that very first day?
Oh my God, it was so exciting. We started vaccinating patients in our Harlem office, and I was one of the ones that, volunteered to go, and we were doing 100 patients a day. And let me tell you, Daren, we had patients coming in with their suits and taking pictures and, photographing and calling their loved ones, look, I'm doing it, I'm getting it. So it was such a great feeling to be part of that, to be able to be part of a person's life. I had 98-year-old patients. We were like, where are you going? Oh, this is the occasion. I'm wearing a suit. This is it for me. And it was, while we were injecting, they were, sending us their blessings and thanking us. And you know what? That is priceless. That is priceless.
Yeah, I think about that. I think about the struggles that you had to go through, right?
Yeah.
And then the joy of actually being able to see people vaccinated, and the role that you play as a nurse. And I said it in the intro, that so many times we take it for granted, right? You guys are on the front lines every day. And day and night. As we're shifting now and navigating through this, what's it been like for you now to the place personally where, we've been in this for more than a year now, and here we are?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you personally, it's been a learning process. And, when this began last year, I have 2 kids, and I told my kids, okay, I am you're not allowed to hug me when I walk in. I'm going to, strip down, take a shower, and then we can talk. And, we're going to have a little social distance here. So, it was a process, and they were worried for me, and I was worried for them. I was working, and they were doing virtual schooling. They're 2 teenagers. So it's been a process, but you know what? I work with a great team here. We all care about each other. We did it, we were here for the patients, and we were here for each other. We needed to somehow, talk and try to have fun and keep going. So I think that's where I am right now. I'm happy where we are, and I know that we still have a lot of work to do. But it's so good to have a good team and to be there for the patients, at the end. That's what matters.
What does it mean to you to be a nurse, especially in a time like this?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? It's great. It's great. This is my second career. I chose nursing because my mom was ill for 20 years, and I would see how nurses treated her. So I said, oh my God, that's so. I felt so grateful, and I said, maybe that's something that I can do. And she said, yeah, maybe you could be a nurse. You have it in you, And she passed away. Sadly, she didn't see me graduate. But I'm happy. I'm happy to be there, to be there for the patients, to talk to them, to listen. Some of them just want to talk. They don't. Their families sometimes don't have time. So this is a good thing for me. This is a good thing for me.
And before we close, what would be the word that you give for somebody who may be watching out there and they still have this vaccine hesitancy? What would you say to them?
Go get it done. Get it done. We have to get this over with. Oops, sorry.
No, that's about as plain as you can put it, right?
Really. Yeah, we have to keep going. We have to keep going and past this and move forward. And that's the only way. That's the only way, Daren.
Thank you so much for being with us. Certainly, congratulations on National Nurses Month.
Thank
Most
you.
of all, thank you for the work that you've done, from the infections to the testing to now the vaccinations. Thanks much. And we hope to have you back.
All right, Daren. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, we want to let you know now, if you want more information about them, I want you to visit the website, ACPNY.com. Again, ACPNY, and then also follow them on Twitter at ACPNY. We encourage you to stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We got more show coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. Well, throughout the month of May, BronxNet is celebrating National Nurses Month, highlighting nurses who serve the community in a variety of different ways. Whether it's a national health emergency or routine daily care, nurses' vital contributions impact the health and well-being of our communities. Our next guest has been with VNSNY for 17 years, and she spends her days visiting Bronx residents whose doctors have prescribed skilled nursing care and follow-up education for their patients at home. Joining us now to share more details is the registered nurse at VNSNY, Amashika DaCosta. And Amashika, good to have you.
Good. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome. And of course, congratulations, National Health Month. And so we want to give you a special congratulations for the work that you do.
Thanks.
So for an average viewer who says, listen, I don't understand what a visiting nurse does, give us a little bit about your day-to-day.
So we typically get patients from the community, whether we get community referrals, we get referrals from the hospital. A patient may have had surgery, joint replacement, any type of surgery, and may need some follow-up education at home. So the doctors would refer the patient to Visiting Nurse Services of New York for continued care. During that time, we come in, we evaluate the patient, and based on our evaluation, we may say that this patient also needs other disciplines as well. But as a nurse, we primarily focus on educating the patient, making sure that the patient is taking the correct medication as prescribed by the discharge summary, and teaching and helping the patient change lifestyle. That might be a diabetic patient that now needs to know to count carbs, to look at nutrition labels to see that, carbs break down into sugars and things are found in, sugars are found in different things. It may not just be a cake. So that's how we spend our day.
What's it been like for you given the fact of this pandemic? Because you already had a hard job to do before. Now the pandemic comes in. What's it been like for you on the front lines?
In the beginning, it was kind of scary because it was so unknown. But VNSNY had did a pretty good job of getting us PPE equipment early on. So we were able to continue to provide care to the patients in the community, especially the patients that were now coming to us COVID-19 positive. So it was a lot to doing on and off all that PPE equipment out in the field. But we were still able to provide stellar care.
Yeah. Was there a lot of fear on the part of the people that you came in contact with on a day-to-day basis? I mean, as the virus progressed, I think more and more of us started wondering, asking questions, particularly in New York City, where the numbers continue to rise.
They did. And some patients in the beginning didn't want services because they didn't want anyone in their home. So we did have some patients who refused services in the beginning because of the uncertainty of this virus. And they just didn't want any new, any person that could spread the virus in the home.
Yeah. So give us a little bit more of an inner perspective, if you will. So before COVID, you're doing this, you're going to the house, you're visiting. Now you've got COVID, and of course, you're talking about PPE, you're talking about social distancing. How does your job change, and what kind of adjustments did you have to make on the inside, given the fact that COVID was now in the community?
We adjusted by now, like trying to keep a certain distance from the patients and not sharing our equipment with the patients. So now we wouldn't allow the patients to sign our tablet because to avoid, contact. And now when we go into the home, the patients would need to wear a mask as well.
And so now they're being on the other side, pretty much. And when I say the other side, hopefully we are on the other side. What's it like now going into the home? Is there a little bit more ease on the part of your patients? And is there a little bit more ease for you as a nurse?
Yes, it's a little ease all around. We feel like we got through the worst of it, So the patients are a little bit more trusting again and willing to have us in the home to give them the care that they truly need.
And as a nurse during these times, particularly, the pandemic, has this brought you guys a lot closer together as nurses, given the fact that we were in a pandemic, and it seems like with you being on the front lines, we, the brotherhood and sisterhood just tightened up a lot?
Yes, because no one else but another nurse understood all of what we were going through and the uncertainty of this all. So yes, we had conference calls where we would talk. VNSNY also gave us emotional support as we dealt with this on the front line. So yes, it brought us closer.
And so for you being a nurse, talk to us about National Nurses Month. What does it mean to you to be recognized as a nurse in a time like this?
I think it's awesome. I think it should be National Nurses Year. We do good work throughout the year.
All year long. I hear that. And so, what is it that people may not understand in the life of a nurse? Take us through the life of a nurse that, like you said, only a nurse understands a nurse. What is it that maybe the public doesn't understand about your work, your workload, and what you've got to do?
As a home care nurse, we deal with a variety of different patients. So you have to meet that particular patient's need, and that may not be the need as the patient you saw before. And not only by meeting their needs, you're meeting them at where they are, right? In their disease process or whatever it is, their surgery process, it's meeting them where they are and trying to provide that care that they need at that time to help them to get to the next level of recovery.
And for you, how rewarding is it to see the fruit of your labor right now? I mean, obviously being on the other side of the pandemic, but really navigating people through this time. And we understand nurses are sometimes that stabilizing force in the lives of your patients. And your patients have had a rough time. And now we're getting a little bit better out of it. But what's it been like for you, that feeling of actually navigating your patients through the season?
It's been rewarding. As a nurse, we've also been a therapist because throughout the pandemic, they've spoken to us about their fears and concerns. So it's been truly rewarding.
So, well, thank you so much for being with us and sharing. I mean, honestly, the work that you guys do is tremendous, and especially going out into the field and visiting. And sometimes the conditions may not be the best, but yet still you make the best of a bad situation. Thank you so much, Amashika, for the work that you guys do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, I want you to know that if you want more information, all you got to do is visit the Visiting Nurse Service at their website and then also on social media as well. Okay, we are taking a quick break. We got more show. We want you to stay with us. Open returns coming up right after this.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
And welcome back to the show. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted many journalists and newsrooms in one way or another. The Riverdale press team recently won 8 statewide awards at the New York Press Association's Better Newspaper Contest, including one of the organization's most prestigious, the Past President's Award for General Excellence. The 8 awards won by the Riverdale Press contributed to a record 34 total awards won by all of the Richner Communications newspapers. Joining us now to share a little bit more is the editor at the Riverdale Press, Michael Hinman. And Michael, good to have you here, and welcome back to Open.
Hey, thank you, Daren. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hey, glad to have you. And certainly congratulations to the Riverdale Press. As I said in the intro, you guys are the recipients of several awards. What's it like for you being an awardee, especially during a pandemic?
Well, I mean, it's funny because that's not really one of the things that we aim for. And I'm sure a lot of editors will tell you that, but it's, and it's true, I think, for most part for all of us. But, usually it's just like what you're doing all the time. It's just you're just trying to get through the grind every single day, every single week. And the pandemic hasn't made that much easier. We've won something like, I think, 31 awards since I've gotten here or something like that. And and it's, but it's a team effort. It really is. It's really all about the people that you surround yourself with, and you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So the awards that we got here, especially the General Excellence Award, that's an overall team effort. That's everybody. And that's not even just reporters. That's not even just editors. That's everybody. That's, circulation, ads, everybody that helps put that newspaper together.
Yeah. Throughout the course of the show, we're talking to nurses. It's National Nurses Month. And of course, we're spending time talking to nurses. But the one thing that's the highlight is they talk about team. And you talked about it yourself, being able to put it together as a team. What's it been like for you guys as a team navigating through this pandemic, bringing journalism home to people?
Well, I will tell you that I don't think that we could have done this 20 years ago for sure. I have reporters on my staff who I have not even physically met. And I mean, that's really unheard of. I mean, we're, a newsroom is like a lot of creative environments. It's a group, and it's a group thing. It's where everybody's together. Everybody can toss ideas off each other, ask each other questions by shouting over, the cubicle barrier, those kind of things. But when you're doing this remotely, when everybody is scattered all over the place and you're not even physically seeing people, it really does. It's hard because a lot of good stories come from what we call reporter osmosis, which is, you're out and about, you're on the bus, you overhear somebody talking about something that sounds interesting. Maybe that's something I should look into. Or somebody sees you on the street or in the store and they come up and have to tell you something. And so when you don't get those kind of things, which is the really excellent hyper local type of stories that you get from that, it's a lot more difficult. So we have to be able to navigate that and find new ways of trying to find those stories. And I mean, and team's been working really hard to do that.
Talk to us about, where we are with the issues, because amidst this pandemic, that in itself is an issue. But you guys were able to really nail down and pin down a few issues during this time. What were some of the issues that really caught your attention?
Well, I mean, obviously, we were focused a lot on the nursing home aspects. We have a lot of great nursing home facilities. And of course, and so many people that we adore and love, readers, other people we've done stories on. So it's been one of those things that's really impacted a lot of that. It's, and of course, as everybody knows, I mean, the pandemic's affected every aspect of our life. Everything about our lives that could be affected was affected by this. But I think, for us, the hardest part was losing some of the people that, that we knew over the years. And I mean, we've lost a few, and it's been very tough. Even when I read about people or write about people who I actually never met, I mean, it's so heartbreaking. And for me, it's, it's hard when people don't take the pandemic seriously, when they're not going out and practicing social distancing or wearing masks or getting vaccinated, and not treating this as serious as they should. For me, it's just, I find it highly disrespectful, for those that we've lost and those who have suffered because of it.
Yeah, it's sad to watch people who really think it's a joke or don't take it for granted when we realize that more than 500,000 Americans have lost their lives, and many of those coming right here out of New York City, and more particularly the borough of the Bronx. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the work that you did in terms of coverage. In addition to the nursing homes, I know also small business and businesses with a particular linear focus on the Kingsbridge businesses. Give us a little bit about the work that you did there.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually kind of interesting. I believe, and I'm trying to think back because some of this was, it seems like so long ago now because of this pandemic.
Right.
It's like every day stretches into its own year by itself. I wasn't gray before all this, I promise. But no, I mean, there was a report that came out, from what I understand, from what I remember, that talked about that was a survey basically of storefronts where they had people going around to different business corridors and looking at storefronts. Was there activity? Was there not activity there? So, was there an open store there, basically, or was there not? And what was really interesting is that throughout the pandemic, that the Kingsbridge area, which is, basically a stretch along Broadway and some of that surrounding area, in the northern part of the Bronx and northwestern part of the Bronx, that businesses were actually doing pretty well, like compared to the rest of the city. So trust me, they were struggling. We know a lot of businesses that were struggling, and even our business struggled. Everybody struggled through all of this, but it was nice to see that there were some highlights in that there was some silver lining in those clouds, especially, in an area like Kingsbridge, which doesn't get a lot of attention that it deserves. And I mean, it's a great business quarter. I'm always down there. So, I mean, some of my favorite eateries are down there, and I mean, and it's just, it's a great place to be. And I want to see that be vibrant, because I think it's kind of it's one of those central hubs that we really need.
Yeah. So for you, what's it been like? I mean, you talked about having reporters that you haven't even met yet. Has it been quite challenging to get the story out and to be able to talk to people? I mean, one of the things I'll say for us has been, we've been able probably to talk to more people now because they're, first of all, they're home, but second of all, with the emergence of Zoom and other, other ways of capturing, we have a way of being able to get more people under our bandwidth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pluses and minuses to all of that. I definitely think that there are, like, for instance, I think I've attended more community board meetings than I ever have in my life, because sometimes I could just turn it on and have it running in the background while I'm working, where I don't have to physically go somewhere. And I do like that. But at the same time, I mean, I miss some of the stories that I would get from going to the meeting, which is not what happened at the meeting, but talking to people afterward, which is something you can't really do in a virtual environment. Like, it's not really people hanging out on a Zoom afterward, and coming up to you and wanting to talk to you or just say hello and then suddenly come up with a story idea that they didn't even realize they have. And so, so I do miss some of that. I mean, it's, I think that it has changed a little bit of our approach to society, but I don't think it's been as dramatic as some people think. I really do feel that as soon as we're all able to get back and be in groups and stuff together again, we're all going to be going toward that again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we go, I wanted to get an opportunity to talk a little bit more about your colleagues winning state awards. And the Riverdale Press, if you haven't just tuning in, the winner of multiple awards, and we're highlighting the Riverdale Press, and Michael's been with us. But tell people, as they're looking forward to see what's happening with the Riverdale Press coming up in the future, what can they expect?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that I'm very excited about is that joining what our already fantastic team that we have is we're bringing in a reporter through the Report for America program who's going to be focused primarily on housing. His name is Joseph De La Cruz, and his focus is going to be, just laser focused on housing in the Bronx, in the city as a whole, and looking at a lot of the many issues that are involved with that in terms of affordable housing, any housing whatsoever, trying to get access to apartments, all that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff that we couldn't really focus on, as reporters, because we're doing so many other things on our beats. So having somebody focused on that and doing that through Report for America is great. And you have to understand too that our reporting staff has been, reduced because of the pandemic. So the people that we have on there, Rose Brennan, Ethan Stark Miller, Aram Daren, I mean, these are people who work very, very hard, who are, I think, doing the impossible every single week. And I mean, they're putting together great stories and finding them and writing them and getting them together. And it's like I said, it's a team effort to get it all done and get it all done where we're all still sane at the end of it. So, I mean, I'm just very lucky. I think all of us, the whole community is very lucky to have this team put together.
Yeah. Before we leave, tell people how they can get in touch and watch read the Riverdale Press and watch, right? That's me.
You can watch it. I don't know what it's going to do.
Watch me read you. So for people who want to read the Riverdale Press, talk to us about how people can get put their hands on it.
Well, the best way is always to subscribe. I mean, our website is riverdalepress.com. If you want to subscribe, just add a little slash and type in the word subscribe. We're also available in a lot of stores around the Riverdale Kingsbridge area, and you can find us online, riverdalepress.com.
All right, Michael Hinman, our guest from the Riverdale Press, editor. Congratulations on all the awards and really bringing journalism home during a time like this. Very, very impactful. And very much needed. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me on, Darren.
All righty. You heard how you can get in touch with them at the Riverdale Press. Listen, we got more show. Don't go anywhere. Open's coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. Well, for over 100 years, Jehovah Witnesses have been known for their door-to-door ministry. A year ago, all of that changed. As witnesses stopped knocking due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the church closed all its public meetings at its 13,000 congregations in the United States. And the question now is, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the Jehovah Witnesses ministry? And how have they adapted? We're pleased to be joined now by the U.S. spokesperson at Jehovah Witness, Robert Hendriks. And Robert, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And as we said, COVID-19 has impacted everybody. But from a spiritual, religious perspective, talk to us about how that's affected the Jehovah Witnesses.
Well, I think most people know, especially in New York City, that we are a very public religion. We are out there, we're knocking on doors, we're in the streets. You see us, especially on Saturday mornings on the corners, but all through the week also. We have been a staple for many years in the subway system, Grand Central Station, Times Square, the street corners, everywhere where we could get attention to our carts and our ministry. We were doing that, and it is part of who we are. It's part of our DNA. When we stopped all of our public meetings, all of our public ministry, all of our even personal visits to provide free home Bible studies, this was a jarring moment for the organization. There's no doubt about it. It affected us in a very, very profound way because it was a paradigm shift, right? Because this is what we live for. I mean, we have some 50 Supreme Court decisions that establish our faith and our right to do what we do. And all of a sudden now we're saying to ourselves, it's time to stop this public outreach in this way. And it was traumatic, but in a way, it just matches our message, because our message to our neighbors has always been, we love you. We love our God, and that's why we want to reach out to you, because we want to share something that has helped us, that has comforted us through these difficult times. And it's that same love of neighbor, and it's that same love of life, the sanctity of life, that moved us to really stop our ministry and stop door knocking, because we were not going to put even one person at risk in doing so.
Yeah. So how did that you adapt? I mean, obviously you're not going door to door. Zoom, Skype. How did your congregants receive that?
I think at first we had hoped it was going to be a short duration, right? So in March we thought there were a lot who said, in fact, many leaders said by April we may be able to get back to normal. But it was very clear by April that it wasn't going back to normal. In fact, our most important, our only holy day in the year went virtual, our memorial of Christ's death, which we hold on a yearly basis. And then in the middle of April, something big happened that we knew was going to change everything in the year, and our conventions were canceled. So we have 5,600 conventions around the world. We have millions attending those conventions in 240 lands, and we canceled them and went to a virtual format. So I guess it's at that time, and sometime in April, that the congregations began saying, you know, we really need to organize an effort in a new way. It was already happening, but then we kind of hunkered down and said, how do we accomplish our ministry, accomplish what Christ told us to do? And he said, you will be witnesses of me in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the most distant parts of the earth. And we feel very strongly that we're fulfilling that today. That's our mandate. And so how do we do it now without knocking on doors? And so that was a decision that had to be made, and a shift that had to be made at that time. And we did make it.
Yeah. But training people and teaching people how to do that, obviously that may not be so easy. How easy a task was it to get people on board to make the adaptation?
Well, I guess not ironically, for about 50 years, our organization has been training us to do alternative forms of witnessing. We used to call our cart witnessing alternative forms of witnessing, and it became so mainstream all over the world and in all major cities over the world that it became who we are. But really, letter writing, phone calling, virtual studies, they weren't used as often, even though our publications date back to 1939 were telling us that's a good way to reach people. In fact, we have training lessons in many of our ministry books that teach us how to write a letter, how to make a phone call. But people like me who grew up doing this and knocking on doors, we kind of resisted it because we enjoyed really going out with our friends, walking from door to door, being in the streets, talking to people, seeing people. And so all of a sudden now we had no choice. And so we all had to learn, and we had to be quick learners because witnessing is our life. We testify, that's what we do. And so we started doing personal letters. At first, it may have been to people that we knew, But then all of a sudden we realized, we have to get our territories done. So we would take virtual car groups on Zoom. We'd have 4 people get together, kind of virtually drive down a street and look at where we are in the neighborhood, pick an address systematically, just as we would walking that street, and get a name and write a personal letter to that person. Same thing with our phone calling. We did the same thing. And what we have found is people have needed this comfort, and people have responded to this comfort. We have never had higher attendance at our meetings. We have reached peak numbers in this year in the number of congregants who are participating in the ministry. We have everything says that our memorial, which happened in April, our special day, is the most widely attended memorial ever in our history. And so it's having an effect, and it's become a very powerful way to reach people on a very personal level, by the way.
And talk about that personal level. Have you heard from your congregants the absence of that personal touch? Because I think that sometimes that's the difference maker for a lot of people, them wanting that personal touch. But in a time like this, I know it's kind of been hard.
It has been hard, and we've recognized that from the beginning. In fact, when we shut down our meetings and we went to a virtual format, many know that our meetings are, generally speaking, they're discussion-based, not lecture-based. What we found was we found community virtually, but we knew that wasn't enough. Even though we had more folks coming to the meeting, even though we embraced different kind of populations, all of a sudden now those who had been listening on the phone for years, we saw their face. They were there for us, and we can interact with them and associate with them for the first time without going to their home. But we also knew early on and to today that we needed to care for their personal needs. And so our congregations are small. Generally speaking, in New York City, they're about 150 people. And they're broken up into about 10, if it were 150, into about 10 smaller groups. We call them pastoral groups. And especially in the throes of the pandemic in New York City and other places, we were touching base with our folks on a daily basis and at least still on a weekly basis to make sure that they had what they need, that especially our most vulnerable populations were being cared for, and that we could, at the minimum, provide that emotional support and sometimes physical support, even in the form of maybe food or supplies that they needed to get through this very difficult time.
So I want to ask you, for people who want to find out more information, what do they do and how do they get connected?
JW.org is the most widely translated website on the web by far, 1,031 languages, which is 10 times what many are at minimum. I think Facebook maybe 175, Google's around there too. And so they can go on to JW.org. They can find out everything they would ever need to know about us and the Bible and Scripture. They can find a local meeting and congregation by clicking and contacting us. In fact, 150 people a day last year in this country alone wrote us for more information. That's about 51,000. And so the website is also a place where you can do your own self-paced Bible study. There's never a paywall. We never ask for anything. We just ask you to go there and check out who we are and how you can coordinate getting to know us a little better.
All right. Well, Robert, we want to thank you for coming and being with us here on Open and certainly letting us know how things are going with the Jehovah Witness community. Thanks so much for being with us here.
Thank you, Daren. It's been a pleasure.
Again, thank you, Robert. And for more information, you can visit the website at jw.org. Well, we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of our show, of course, you can catch the Recablecast, Optimum's Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Now, if you want more, come back on Friday. My girl, Rita Valentine, will be here, bringing you the best in arts and entertainment and also some COVID-related stuff. Until then, I am Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep our channel wide open.